Welcome. If you are new to the Walking Book Club, I'm Julie Kaminsky. I'm the founder of the Walking Book Club. We are an audio book club. We are a virtual global community that moves while listening to audiobooks to engage the mind and the body. If you're new to us, well, an extra special welcome. And now I'd like to introduce a special guest, Libby DeLana. Libby, I want to kind of go back and share how our paths kind of crossed. It was actually one of our members who had said, have you seen Park Here? She has walked the circumference of the world in miles, not physically. In miles. Libby has walked the circumference of the world in miles. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so she inspired us to start a Miles in Minutes challenge to see if we could, as a group, collectively walk the circumference of the world. So we started last June and we ended in February. We had about 750 miles per week collectively, and we walked the circumference of the world, and we might have to join Libby in our second loop. So let me now tell you a little bit about our special guest, Libby. In the time that we were doing this challenge, Libby wrote a book. It's called Do Walk. I encourage you to get it. It is not an audiobook, but it is very inspirational with pictures. And I would say, I keep it on my desk. I would say it's a desktop book for reminders to really tap into the spiritual aspect of walking. Now, a little bit about Libby. I don't quite know where to start because there's so many really fun adjectives. Not only is she a writer, she is an ad executive with awards behind her. She started her own agency, so a very creative human being. Included in there is let's say, an aspiring pilot, a rookie fly fisherman, a tea snob, that's interesting, a kombucha Jedi, and I love this, mother to two tall boys. Oh, and she herself is a model, beautiful. Check out her page. She's stunning. And if you don't follow her already, she is on Instagram, and her Instagram handle is @parkhere, and she's got some amazing photography that she takes herself. So I would actually add photographer to that list. So welcome, Libby. We are so glad you are joining us today, and we can't wait to jump into the questions.
Well, I'm really honored. Thank you so much. And I will say, actually, the book is audio. There is an audio version.
Oh, is? Oh,
there
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, which is, I have to say, reading it out loud was quite an interesting experience, actually. I kept thinking, did I really write that? When did I write that? So it is audio, should you want to. But
excellent.
Thank you for having me. And I will say hello to everybody. If you want to turn on your camera, I love seeing who's here. So hopefully we can see each other. Oh dear.
So Libby, for those of us who are new to maybe your book, could you kind of walk us through how it came to be? I think that's really pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been walking every single morning, no matter what, for 10 years. And what brought me to that point was that a decade ago, as Julie mentioned, I'm in the ad world. I'm an art director by trade. I had come to a place where it became very, very clear that I was missing something in my life, that it was essential. And it should have been obvious when I look back now. But I am happiest outdoors. And my days had become wonderfully, but very filled with to-do lists and carpools and picking up this and meetings and conference calls, such that I was not really outside as much as I think my spirit needed to be. And I say I should have known that because when I look back on my childhood, the place where I was happiest was out mucking around outside, a little bit of a tomboy. And so I just decided I believe that for things that are important for us, we don't find time, we absolutely make time. We have to make time. So I just decided I am going to be outside for at least an hour a day. And what that looked like for me was, I grew up as an athlete. And I thought, well, I can go for a run, but I'm probably not going to run for an hour every day. I'm just going to put on my shoes, head out the back door and go for a walk. At the same time, because of the industry I'm in, Instagram actually was just coming on the scene. And as I'm 59, I'm really happy about that. At 49, women in advertising, especially older women in advertising, become obsolete really fast. It is a young man's game, to be perfectly honest. But I was really committed to staying plugged in and up to speed, because clients expect me to walk into a presentation and have a good ecosystem, an understanding of all the different tools that can be used. So I thought, well, if nothing else, when I go out for a walk, what I'm going to do is take a picture every day and post it to Instagram. And the idea was not about followers. I don't really care. I don't really pay attention to that. But the idea was, it was an act of accountability. And it was a way for me to understand that tool to help me in my work. So I'm the kind of person that I have to use something in order to fully understand it. So I just started taking a picture every day. And actually, that was a radical act for someone who's in the business of art direction and design. And what it really did for me, I didn't realize this until a few years in, was that it taught me how to see, not just look, but truly see, because I would often take the same path and I'd go past this really elegant barn, old, paint weathered, it faces to the east. So the sunlight on the morning is really beautiful. But this is terribly obvious, but from a visual perspective, what I began to notice is how wonderfully different that barn looked every single day. And it looked different, not only because of the weather and the light and so on, but it looked different because of how my internal weather was. Did I have a big grump on? Had I not slept well? All those kinds of things. So if nothing else, that taking the picture provided an opportunity to understand that tool, but it also, in some ways, made me slow down and really look for the picture I wanted to represent that day. And it also really was foundational in teaching me how to see. I thought I knew. I'd spent 20 years in the business of art direction, which means looking at pictures and cropping and all that. And what I realized is I really had no idea. And it wasn't until that daily act of honoring that barn and truly seeing it that I feel like I understood how to see. So that's how it started 10 years ago. And it's never been about mileage or pace. I only keep track sort of roughly in my head. And what happened in the fall of 2019 was that on one walk, I kind of did this rough math. Well, I walk between, I don't know, 8 miles a day, 8 and 10 miles a day. And I did the quick math, and just as I was walking, looked up what the circumference of the earth was. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm on track to about January 1st of 2020. I'm going to be in the ballpark of having circumnavigated the earth. And quite honestly, that was really meaningful to me, because it kind of, how do I say this? It made it meaningful in that, how beautiful that you can walk out your back door with no gym membership, no signing up for a class, have this beautiful experience, and then having had this adventure essentially of circumnavigating the earth. It was a really sort of powerful moment. And so that's sort of how it all came together. Again, pace doesn't matter, mileage doesn't matter. But what does matter is that I go every single day. Now, there have been certainly days when I've been sick or I've been traveling. When I'm sick, I honor that. I get up, I go around the block, I say good morning to the day, I might go back to bed. There haven't been many of those, thankfully. If I'm traveling, often what I'll do is get to the location, because I used to travel a lot for work. And the first thing I would do is put my walking shoes on and walk near the hotel or wherever I was staying, to get grounded in the neighborhood, to get grounded in the space. And So again, the only thing that's important is I've done it every single day. And some are more heroic and magnificent in terms of weather than others. But it's a commitment to myself, and it's a commitment to creating that space in the day where, it's the most creative part of my day. It's my best therapist. It's adds, space to think clearly, quite honestly.
That's wonderful. When I was reading, what I appreciate about your book is it brought me back to kind of the spiritual aspect. I think as a personal trainer in group fitness, I look at it as more as a mode of exercise. But when I read your book, it really tapped into the spiritual aspect. And in one of your interviews, you said, I start many walks with an intention, and by the end, I have escorted that intention, idea, solution, concern around the loop. So I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit more just on that, the spiritual aspect of walking for you.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of an intention, that's something that's just happened in the last few years, because I think I started this whole process relatively naively. I'd put my earbuds in, I'd go out, I'd walk around, and it's probably in the last few years that I thought, and certainly highlighted during the pandemic, where I couldn't listen to music or news or anything. So I took my earbuds out basically for the last 2 years. I haven't really listened to much. And again, what happens is you notice so much more. You notice the internal dialogue, you notice the internal machinations of your thoughts. And I decided, you know what, before I step out, I'm just going to think about something in my life that could use a little attention, could use a hug, that could use a little love. And whether it might be a problem I needed to solve, or something that needed some attention, or and I would just start the walk thinking about that one thing. And much like a seated meditation, which I find terribly hard, to sit and stay on task with a simple notion of breathing, to take an intention to start walking. And I walk for about 2 hours during the day. To stay focused on that intention, I found a real challenge, but that became a beautiful challenge. So let's say I had some work that I needed to figure out a solution to. My intention was to stay focused on that issue through the whole walk, to really look at it from all sides, to hold it, to understand it. And so to stay focused on that one thing for an entire walk was both a practice in focus, whether it be on breath or this intention. And I was also always surprised, having stayed focused on something for that length of time, how much richer the subject got, how much I became comfortable with it. Sometimes there were sort of challenging things over the course of time. I always like to say, I like to add motion to emotion. For me, when I walk, I can take something that's maybe stuck in my chest or feels uncomfortable, and as I walk, it begins to loosen. It begins to get, it's like a massage for my body. So the intention might be, ooh, I am feeling very strong emotion in my chest for whatever brought it there. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what caused it. I'm not sure, but I'm going to stay focused on this feeling. And I'm going to stay in the discomfort. I'm going to stay in the caring for it. I have a dear friend who she always describes it as putting your hand on your chest and saying, "It's okay, sweetheart," right? It's okay. So it's sort of holding whatever that was and trying to allow space for it to blossom, to bloom, to and to understand it. And honestly, it feels like a radical gift to be able to spend time with, all of that, both problems, that creative problem solving. A lot of it used to be when I had our own agency and we were trying to figure out things, how to solve those issues holistically. So it's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's no. One of the, I kind of I called this event Walking Into Your Week with Inspiration, and you're doing exactly that. You're providing inspiration. So thank you. One of the things that you said in terms of, that it's difficult to stick with an intention, and also watching your other interviews and reading your book about the days that were more difficult in terms of weather, and those were the days that you were most meaningful. And as in the coaching kind of philosophy, we say no low-hanging fruit, meaning if it's that easy and you can accomplish it by just reaching up and picking it, it's not going to give you that growth and that muscle to do hard things where you feel really good about what you've accomplished. So maybe you could, that kind of piggybacks off of, sticking, it was tough to stick with the intention, but maybe if you can kind of switch and talk about those difficult walks and the grit and determination.
Yeah, in some ways it is on those hard walks, whether it's, I live in New England, north of Boston, right on the coast. There are some mornings when honestly it's well below zero and it's snowy and gnarly. And I, over the year, have put together a kit that keeps me warm long enough. And I know I'm only going to be out for an hour or two, so it's not, it's not so heroic. But there have definitely been times where I turn the corner and I'm coming into the headwind and I'm all bundled up and I've got my headlamp on and I think to myself, what the heck are you doing? Like, what are you doing out here? This is silly. And yet it is on those days inevitably where I get home and I'm not sure it's this precisely articulated, but I've committed to myself, right? What I've done is not to give in to that voice that says, don't worry about it. You don't need to go out. You're tired. Don't worry. It is, in fact, in those moments where I'm actually inspired. It's like, those are the days I need to walk. I need to say to myself, I understand I can rest, voice in my head, but have a seat. I'm going out. And I have never had a walk where I didn't feel better after. The hard walks are often where the answers are. There have definitely been times when I've been over eager on a really bad weather day and I've headed out and the wind has been at my back and I turn and I come back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 5 miles directly into the headwind with a hail in my face. And that is actually when I just go to this place that it's just step by step. Don't get overwhelmed with all 6 miles. Don't begin to project that your toes are going to get cold and you're going to be wet. Right now, and that's the mindfulness meditative piece of it, we're going to just stick with this next step and the next step. And you did it. So how about the next step? And it's just coming back to breath or step. It is cliche, but step by step, you end up arriving and getting to that place. And there was a couple of walks that are really monumental in these last 10 years. One is actually, I think I shared with you, sort of walking has become my best friend, my therapist in many ways. So I found out some really, really heartbreaking news about, which I won't go into the details, but involved a really intimate betrayal. I mean, really core to who I am. And I found out this information and I was leaving work. And this is life-changing information. So I got home and I thought, well, my instinct in a way, my head was saying, take a shower, make yourself a cup of tea, just get in bed and just, take in fetal position, curl up, take care of yourself. And at one moment I thought, no, actually, the most powerful thing I can do, it probably bring me to tears. The most powerful thing I can do at this moment is put on my shoes. And what I did is I put on my walking shoes. This is about 6 o'clock in the evening. And I walked all night. And I don't mean that to be dramatic. I don't mean that to sound heroic. I knew that that was the way I was going to add motion to this emotion and begin to heal it, honestly. So after each loop is about, 5 or 6 miles. I thought, you know what, I'll get to the end of each loop and I'll just rest for a moment and ask myself, do you want to go in? Do you want to go have a shower? There is no requirement to keep going. And what I realized is after each loop, I was like, nope, I want to go back out again. And each loop brought a sort of sense of a new emotion because it was a grieving process. So it was, one loop was pure, excuse my language, effing rage. I mean, like stomping, and I was howling. I live out, so I wasn't waking anybody up. The next one was furious, and the next one was sadness. So each loop kind of brought actually what I needed to hold in that moment, whereas going home, and which was kind of an animal instinct to kind of go hide underneath the covers. So that walk I look back on as being the moment when I realized that going for a walk was the most healing, supportive, I call it sort of radical self-care gesture I could take. And so that's probably the most sort of significant walk, but each one brings its own story, its own solution. And I will say during the pandemic, it was a lifesaver because it's how many of my community and I all got together. We felt very safe. We put our masks on, and even outside, and we would walk together and cry and, be with each other and howl and laugh. But yeah, so the sort of healing spiritual component, I think I'm sort of new to, meaning in the last few years. But, and I also say during the pandemic, taking my earbuds out, because I would listen to books and music and news, I really came to feel as if it was in the quiet where the answers were for me. That once I was able to quiet my brain and really, I think I'm not very good at tapping into my emotional context. I think that's how I'm built. And so for me, taking that all out and walking in the rain and walking in the sunrise and kind of tapping into more what's here and here has been kind of transformational. I think that's maybe what you're feeling in the book is some of that learning.
Thank you for sharing a very emotional and meaningful and difficult walk with us with the betrayal. One of my questions was least favorite walk, but maybe are there any walks that were filled with laughter or anything that like those monumental, not necessarily like at least say that sounds like a very emotional walk, but what were some other walks that stand out to you?
Well, here's the thing that is incredible, right? I mean, every walk brings with it some kind of lesson if you're awake to it, right? I would say even just recently, we've been having some really tumultuous weather here. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this one walk I really love. It's kind of along the beach. I hopped in my car, drove out to this one starting point. And so my drive out to it is to the east. The sun was coming up. The fog was unbelievable. I mean, I practically burst out in tears. It was so beautiful. And it was only because I'm committed to taking these walks and willing to get up as the sun comes up that I get to see that. And it feels like such a privilege. I mean, the community's slowly waking up when I get started, but it feels like a really private moment. And I'm really grateful that those kinds of things mean a lot to me. This winter, when I was walking out, we live in this beautiful area, which is a migratory path for birds. I kept seeing a snowy owl. Do you know how rare it is to see a snowy owl? There was 11 days in a row I saw her. And in one moment I was walking down, I think I posted this, I just pulled out my camera and she flew right overhead and landed in the tree right above me. And I thought it would be really easy to miss that. It'd be easy to miss that if I were driving in the car, if I weren't up. We've also had some really absolutely hysterical walks where friends and we've gone in costume just cause. We brought sparklers with us. It was somebody's birthday and we tucked cupcakes in our pocket. So, we've had, I'm very lucky to have an incredible network here who will be willing to go with me in all sorts of crazy weather. But Yeah, we tucked cupcakes in our pocket and wore crazy hats and brought sparklers with us. So it's kind of the full range, right? Full range of life in every walk. And as you can imagine, over 10 years, I've taken some walks in some beautiful places. I'm very committed to an organization, as we mentioned, over in Nepal. And so to get up in Kathmandu with my really dear friend and walk the streets of Kathmandu early in the morning, incredible privilege, a completely different ecosystem. So I've taken some morning walks. I did a big trip this summer, very COVID safe. We were out on one of the rivers off the Colorado River called the Yampa, considered one of the last wild rivers, meaning it's not dammed. We were out there for a week sleeping on the banks of the river and going down the river. And so my walks were along the edge of the Yampa River. And that ecosystem is considered a dark sky park, meaning that it is complete, there's no ambient light. And it was a full moon. So you can imagine the crack of dawn along this river, this full moon with this huge sky. And again, I'm not sure I would see that otherwise. I'd be tucked in my sleeping bag and not noticing. So full range.
You know what we call those in the Walking Book Club community? Karen's here, she knows. Karen, what do we call those? Can you come off mute?
Our cupcake moments.
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
So it's like I feel like once again we're like you find your people. We call them cupcake moments because they're little bites of goodness that are deserving to be savored. And it sounds like your walks are filled with I call them nature's cupcake moments.
Yeah, lots of cupcakes.
And but also you actually walk with cupcakes in your pockets.
Totally.
So how fabulous
Right in our
is
little
that?
pockets. I know. They often come out of my pocket looking not much like a cupcake, but they taste great. So
well, that's fun. So once again, not only in my mind of going, those are nature's cupcake moments, and then you said you walked with cupcakes in your pockets. So we should all stick some cupcakes in our pockets.
Always.
There you go.
Well, I've gotten to a place in the winter where I have this sort of very old school, I think my kids are mortified by it, this little fanny pack where I put a whole bunch of stuff in there and my feet get little hand warmers and stuff. But I always carry chocolate, always, especially as it starts to get cold.
Well, I want to encourage people, if you want to chat to and talk with Libby or comment, please let me know. And if not, we'll just kind of keep going. But it's really great when you our attendees participate. So please, if you've got a question or a comment, let me know so I can call on you and come off mute. But with that being
Karen has a question.
Thanks, Karen.
So my problem lately, I used to get up and walk every morning. I enjoyed it. I had originally started for weight loss. I wanted to lose a few pounds, but I came to enjoy it. Then with the pandemic, I mostly stopped enjoying everything because the way that I had to go to work changed. I'm a teacher and I had to work with my students online, and I really didn't enjoy that. And I couldn't go out with my friends to the places we used to go. And I think all of that just started to weigh really heavily on me. I became very unhappy. Walking became this chore. And I'm in a place now where I don't go anymore. I once enjoyed it. The Walking Book Club, I had a really great time listening to those books and chatting with people. I haven't even looked at the club lately because I don't want to see that everybody else is out walking and talking about these books and I'm not. And I'm in this kind of like a cycle right now where some days I'll get up and think I really should go walk, and it's become that should for me instead of I want to. And most of the time I say no, and I'm just not going. And I'm wondering if you've ever had a period like that in your life and how you worked through that. How'd you get past it and get back out there?
Yeah, Karen, it's a great question. And it sounds like you want to start walking again. So I hope you find that place where you want to do it enough to hit it. But Yes, I certainly have. And there's certainly been singular days where I really don't want to. Um, you know what, um, how did I do it? I think really what began to happen was, as I said, there has never been a walk that I haven't come back from and been excited about, felt better by. I always am better, feel better, think better after having gone for one. So the thing guess I hold is that knowing that when I have gone, I will return grateful for having gone. And it helps me get over that moment. Maybe this is helpful. So as crazy as it sounds, our little pod squad during the pandemic, we live right near the ocean, decided to do these polar plunges, and we would go 3 or 4 times a week. And that was for the exact reason that you're articulating, which is I don't really want to go. I kind of want to have done it, but I don't really want to go. And what we all began to notice was that as we would approach the water, and it was really cold, our minds were very busy telling us why we didn't want to go, why we shouldn't go. It's too cold, it's too dangerous. And we got into the habit, thanks to my dear friend Cheryl, who one day said out loud exactly what we were all thinking, like, what the heck are we doing? Why are we going in the water? Why are we doing this? What is the point of this? And we knew that having gone in the water and come out together, we felt heroic. We felt like our community was really strong together. And so we would start saying it out loud. I would start saying it out loud to her. I don't know, my whole drive over here, I didn't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But what began to happen was we knew that having gone in, once we got out and we just had done it, we felt better. We felt better. In the case of polar plunging, all your light switches are turned on, the dopamine's flowing. I think the same thing happens for a walk. So it was a little bit about honoring and quieting the storytelling in our head about why we shouldn't go, and knowing, tapping into our knowing that once we went, we were going to feel better. In the case of that polar plunging, actually, I have to say today, I'm dying to get in the water because I know what I feel like once I get out. It's incredible. And it's the same with walking. I know when I get back, it's better. And I hope that's helpful. But for me, it is not believing the storytelling that's in my head and tapping into this understanding that every time I've gone for a walk, things are improved. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think if I can just envision that end point, because I'm kind of stuck on the
Yeah,
beginning part where
beautiful.
I have to change my mindset from that word should,
Yes.
because I don't like that word should, because there's very few things in life that we should or that we have to do. And I think if I can change that and reframe why I'm going, rather than make it about fitness or getting hung up on the weight that I regained during the pandemic and focusing it more just on the experience of the walk.
Yeah.
And I like your idea of getting in the car and going somewhere, because my walks have been either my own neighborhood, which is fine, or bad weather, I go to the gym and walk the indoor track. I'm close enough to the beach. I'm close enough to big parks. Maybe switching it
Absolutely.
up.
Yeah. I love what you said, Karen, which is about shifting your focus on the result, not on the starting. Because that's exactly what happened to us with our polar plunging. We could talk ourselves out of it in a heartbeat because the starting was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
What we fell in love with was how we felt when we had done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I love that you said that, which is remembering, holding dear that you love walking, you've loved it. And, it's a radical act of self-care. Who cares how many miles you go? Who cares how fast you go? Just go. And
well, that's the other thing. I got to lose the Fitbit and counting the steps. because that's another thing that always holds me back when I have that goal in my head. You're going to walk this many steps, this many miles for this amount of time. I'm starting to shut down on that.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I think get in the car and go to one of those beautiful parks and enjoy the walk. And who knows what you'll see. Right now, there's so many
Right.
things blooming and butterflies and caterpillars, and put a cupcake in your pocket and
Yeah,
off you
that'll
go.
help too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Libby.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Enjoy your
Anybody,
next walk.
Thank
Actually,
you.
I can't wait to hear about your next walk.
Karen's one of my favorite walk and talk buddies.
Oh,
So although
yeah, I
we're
can
not
see why.
neighbors, and and we are the walking book club, but there's no walking book club police out there. So unplug every once in a while, join up with friends, podcast, music. Oh, and Libby does have a playlist on Spotify called This Morning Walk. So that's kind of fun too. And anybody else, I want to make sure we have time if anybody else wants to make a comment. So just raise your hand and I can't necessarily see everybody, but I guess, Libby, I am so grateful that you have come and to share and talk today, because sometimes, like Karen said, as a personal trainer and a group fitness, and during COVID, it became my exercise and my activity. But what I really appreciate about you, and I wrote it, is that it brings you back to the spiritual aspect, and we talk about spiritual refueling, filling your tank, and how a walk can do that it's not just about burning a calorie or but really the spiritual refueling that can come from a walk.
Yeah, it's nourishing in so many ways. I think to your point, yeah, it's certainly spiritual. It is creative. It's my most creative time. I get ideas, I see colors, I see something, and all of a sudden it triggers a new way of thinking. Yeah, so and again, I'm not sure I would have known, I wouldn't have started this practice. And I call it a practice, much like a seated meditation, right? It's a commitment to a way of being, a way of seeing the world, of taking care of who I am. Oh, Karen, one thing I wanted to say to you, or just maybe inspire a slightly different way of thinking about bad weather. I heard you say you go into the gym at bad weather. Is going into the gym an inspiring place for you, or is that a place where it feels like, I just have to get my steps in?
It depends on what day it is. Sometimes I'll go there and I am inspired. My gym is pretty cool. There are inspirational quotes all over the wall. And what I like about my gym, it's not one of those. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way. It's not a musclehead gym. There are a lot of people who are even older than I am and doing what they can. And
beautiful.
It's inspiring sometimes because I'll connect with somebody and we just walk for a ways and we encourage each other. So I wouldn't say it's uninspiring.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. I think, what I often get asked is, how do you go out in the rain and the snow? And again, some of those days are the days that things really become clear, right? I get really grounded really fast when it's pouring rain. I am really attentive if one of my socks bunches up and I get a blister, right? Talk about being mindful, right? Like I just have to breathe through that. And so I guess my invitation to you is, instead of framing it as bad weather, frame it as, it's a rainy day, but there might be something to see or learn out there that I wouldn't, I'm motivated by being outside, and I know not everybody is, but it might provide an interesting little adventure to put on a raincoat. And I now have this rain skirt. Amazing. I sometimes think I'm seeing things that nobody else is seeing because everybody's inside, and what a privilege that is. So, maybe not every rainy day, because your gym sounds incredible and sounds like you have some great people there, but maybe just give it a try. It's a pretty lovely experience, I will say, being out in the weather.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am chatting back here. At the end, and we're coming, I've got a couple things that I want to finish up with. But at the end, Libby, maybe you can share all the ways that people can connect with you.
Yeah.
But you touched upon something right there, a little bit more tactical, but I am curious, since you have so many miles underneath your belt, and maybe it would be helpful. From a tactical standpoint, what would you say are the must-haves for a longer walk that you take with you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Well, number one is shoes, great shoes. And when I say great shoes, I mean a brand of running shoes that is highly regarded. I happen to be a Hoka fan. I have been for a long time. I had a few little funky things going on with my feet. Those shoes happen to work for me. But what I would invite people to do is, if there is a run specialty shoe shop anywhere near you, is to go into that store and have them find the right brand for you, find the right shoe for you. It can make a huge, for me, in terms of my mileage, it makes a huge difference. So Asics, Brooks, Saucony, I don't happen to think Nike is a terrific brand for walkers, Hoka, On Running. There's a number of great shoe brands. Now, they're expensive shoes, which is the tricky thing. So I buy last season's or 2 seasons ago. I don't care what color. I just know which shoe works for me, and it doesn't really matter to me. So I, buy them on sale. And this sounds ridiculous, but I put a date on my shoe, on the tongue of my shoe. And that is because I know roughly what I walk per week. And I am religious about only putting 600 miles on each pair of shoes, which is a couple of months. And the thing about that is, undoubtedly one could go longer, but what I find with a lot of people is they buy a pair of running shoes and it's maybe a year or 2 later and they haven't swapped them out. And I view that as dangerous. Now, it doesn't mean that 600 miles is appropriate for everybody, but keep track of how old your shoes are. They're meant to perform at a certain, density of the foam and so on. So shoes. I happen to also take out the shoe liners on my shoes and put in orthotic-y kind of things. And I buy those at the running store as well. I like a little arch. Some people like a little cushion underneath. So I just sort of customize the shoe for my foot, and that's taken a little bit of time, but you can get those at a run specialty store too. I also get my shoes about half a size up. And the reason for that is, as I walk, my toes expand and honestly, they sweat. And I don't think anybody's looking at me. I'm not trying to make my feet look smaller or anything. It's all about comfort. So I go a half a size up. In the winter, I go a full size up because I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks. But a great pair of shoes, shoe liners, put the date on them, potentially get a half a size up. And then quite honestly, everything else is very personal, right? Do you like to wear cotton for a t-shirt? Not always. I often wear a baseball cap to just keep the sun off my face. But the shoes are really the essential piece. I happen to wear sort of leggings. In the winter, it's a whole different kit, which I won't go into now, but actually, I think I've posted that kit on my website, which is thismorningwalk.com. I'm going to check that after. I'll put the list there because I kind of fine-tuned that kit. But it's really to me, it's really all about the shoes and having a pair of shoes that really are wonderful for your feet. Everything else, like the cupcakes in the pocket and the chocolate in the fanny pack, can all change.
That's one thing that I am constantly, or it's a regular reminder to people within the Walking Book Club, is that sneakers do expire. And I usually try and change mine out every 500 miles, but the tip to write the date on it is excellent. And I I share with people that chances are your sneakers will still look good, but they're not supporting you. And
right.
you might, if you feel it in your knees or your hips or your back, do a little bit of a self-check. And is it time for a new pair of sneakers?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would encourage you that what Libby said is, if you're a little unsure, go to a really good shop to get fitted. And once you know you're fit, then it's easy. And a little thing that I do sometimes when I was teaching group fitness, sometimes I'll buy a couple pair at the same time and rotate them, and then I can match my sneakers with my outfit. But I don't do that anymore because we're not teaching group fitness. Anyway,
I love that. Yeah. And
yeah.
and once you know what shoe you like, again, you can
Yeah.
our friend the Google, you can buy last year's version, and they're wonderful, and they're often half price.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 45 minutes together has gone so quickly. Two things that I want to end with. First, Libby, and we'll do that last little thing then. First, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, which is where I guess my morning walks started, and where I honestly is where it happened for me, is at Park Here. My middle name is Park. So that handle came about when my friend said, "Oh my gosh, it's Park Here." So Park Here. There's also a hashtag that I started using a few years ago, this morning walk. So please, if you go for a walk, please use that. I love seeing where everybody is walking. It's really inspiring. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm there, but it's really my family's ecosystem, so I don't really show up there so often. As I said, thismorningwalk.com is a website that I put together at the launch of this book, where there's articles that I've written. And Julie, you reminded me, I not only need to put my walking kit, but also the playlist. So the playlist on Spotify, you know what? I'm not sure it's for everybody. Every time I like a song, I just throw it in there. It's got everything from hip hop to Ella Fitzgerald. So in any case, I wish I could say it was much more precise and finely tuned. It kind of isn't. But that's on Spotify. I think I'm Libby DeLana on Spotify, not Elizabeth. My birth name is Elizabeth. So really probably This Morning Walk and Park Here on Instagram are the two places where you're most likely to find me. And this book is available, at your local bookstore. You can order it, and you can also buy it off the website, which takes you to books.org or a whole host of other places that you could purchase it from. And it was published by a really wonderful publisher out of the UK called the Do Book Company, as in doing things. And it was created around this, I'll call it a conference that has been happening every year for 10 years that I was very intimately involved with, which is a series of people come together for a weekend and talk about the things they're doing in hopes of inspiring others to do the things that they love. And when you give a talk at this spot, the Do Lectures, you are often then invited to also write a book. I was supposed to give a walk and talk last summer. Obviously, things went sideways. So I think hopefully I will go over to Wales to talk about walking in 2022. So Park Here and thismorningwalk.com is probably the best spots.
And I think Libby's book makes a great gift.
Aren't you kind?
I bought some for my special friend. So
yeah. You're very nice.
I thought it would be lovely, and I asked Libby if she would read, and this is the way we'll close it out. And I always find the end of Zoom calls so awkward with everybody dropping off. When Libby finishes, maybe we can all take a collective breath and wave goodbye, and we'll end it on that note. And before Libby reads the walking mantra that I love, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
You can connect with the Walking Book Club too. We have an Instagram account. As I said, there's no Walking Book Club police. Come for the community, come for the healthy body, happy mind, come for the books. But we would love to see you again in any of our communities. So Libby, will you please close out this beautiful virtual event with your walking mantra?
I sure will. And to reiterate what Julie said, thank you all for coming. It's a real honor to see all of you, and I'm really grateful. So I enjoy your walking. So this walking mantra, quite honestly came to me while I was walking one day. I was just thinking, actually, there's so much about walking that really moves me. So I say this as I'm often concluding my walk. So may you find happiness in walking. May you find joy in walking. May you find energy in walking. May you find answers in walking. May you find beauty in walking. May you find a sparkly world in walking. May you find right now in walking. May you find peace in walking. May you find bravery in walking. And may you find love in walking. And thank you all so much. To me, walking is a radical act of love for ourselves, for each other. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, everybody. Hope to connect with you again soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.